Now, back in 1933, because of the plan, the New Deal, there was a changeover in the currency, and there was also a changeover in the administration of the government. And so we had come from a substance-backed currency, which has been called execution of law, as in common law and so forth. Then after 1933, we went into operation of law, and we have in what we call public policy. Now, when FDR removed substance currency for use in commerce, what happened was that the remedy that they brought forward to replace the execution of law what's called discharge of debt. Now, this was fundamentally explained in House Joint Resolution 192 of the 5th of June, 1933, I think. Yeah, it's 33. And what it basically amounted to was the changeover into operation of law under public policy. Now, what happened at that time was the United States became a constitutor for the citizens of the United States. Now, that would be 14th Amendment type citizens. And so the remedy that was given to the United States citizens by the United States as constitutor was discharge of public debt. So that is the remedy that is available to all the citizens of the United States. Now, when we discharge a debt, the debt does not go away. It is simply put off to some future resolution. And so the debt remains, although the liability for the debt changes places. And so again, when we discharge a debt as a United States citizen, the liability for that goes back to the United States government. Now, this is what's called Treasury Direct. When we discharge a debt, Treasury Direct, in essence, we're talking about discharge back to the Office of International Treasury Control, because they are, in fact, the surety for the whole process. And so the discharge, that a citizen does, it discharges back to the United States, and then that liability for that debt rests upon the shoulders of the United States, and so the United States is the one that has to deal Treasury Direct with the surety, who in fact holds the gold by which all this commerce and so forth is carried on.
Okay, so if we could maybe go more into the kind of problems that people are facing and to hands-on remedy.
Sure.
I got some people on the board that are kind of itching to address their issues. So where can you take us from there?
Well, again, the reason why that I gave this history was so that people would understand the basis for what they're dealing with. And that is simply to demonstrate that what we're calling the IRS here in the United States is a corporation, and it is a debt servicer. Like a lot of people have gotten into a mortgage situation, and supposedly the mortgage was sold. Actually, the bank that you're probably dealing with on your mortgage is a debt servicer, in the same way that the Internal Revenue is a debt servicer. And so they're not the holder of the principal obligation. And so it's the same thing with the Internal Revenue here. They are not the holder of the principal obligation, and therefore they cannot claim, they cannot make the claim that they can actually enforce the debt because they're simply the servicer. And so people are kind of barking up the wrong tree in many instances when they start to talk about just what and who the IRS is, at least as it applies to the United States. And so again, the citizens of the United States, and I'll have to say that the citizens of the United States are generally that entity which is in all capital letter denomination. For instance, what people are calling their straw man.
Uh-huh.
And so the straw man then is the United States citizen, and so that is in fact who the IRS deals with. The IRS very seldom deals with a man or a woman, but they will always try to deal with the straw man entity on the basis that the man or the woman is the surety and or the trustee for that entity on the basis of their unqualified signature on the SS5 form. Now, it's a well-proven fact that the Internal Revenue Service is not a government agency, and they never have been. I mean, they were brought on shore in 1933, and they incorporated in Delaware.
Right. So
they are not an agency of the United States government, never have been, and never will be. So the best way to describe what people are calling the Internal Revenue Service is that they are a third-party debt collector. Now, does that ring any bells? Certainly, for those who have been around a little while and utilize some of the technology and so forth that we have been looking at, that you would certainly realize that the way to deal with a third-party debt collector is through Title 15 of the United States Code and not Title 26.
Because apparently Title 26 deals with internal revenue as opposed to the Internal Revenue Service.
Yes, you have to be very careful and look, people generalize, and that is, they do not make the distinction about just exactly who and what it is they're dealing with, and they sort of lump everything together in one big heap. But that's not correct. Again, if you're dealing with a third-party debt collector or a debt servicer, then the remedy is not in Title 26. The remedy has to lie in Title 15.
Okay, so tell us more about that as far as individual situations. If somebody's got a lien or levy against them, or they're getting threatening letters, and so forth.
Well, there's many ways to deal with that, and certainly a lot of we have developed over the years many approaches and many technologies to deal with some of these problems. And you can either do it on the private administrative side, or you can actually take the things into the public courts for resolutions to those problems. And so, anybody can pick and choose, whichever technique that they would think about to be perhaps the best solution to the problem. Now, one of the things that has been developed on the private administrative side is what is known as accepted for value. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but accepted for value is private administrative procedure. It's on the private side. And so you're dealing with the acceptance on the basis that you are in fact going to guarantee payment, or you're going to guarantee the effect of payment by using the accepted for value technology. Because what we're doing with the accepted for value is that we're taking a incomplete instrument. If you look in your UCC, I think it's Article 3, I think Section 115, where it talks about incomplete instruments. When any kind of presentment comes, such as from the IRS, comes through the mail, usually comes in the form of mail fraud, for those of you who don't understand that. But anyway, it comes, and when it comes, it's an incomplete instrument, which means basically that it has no charge associated with the instrument. And so what we're doing with the acceptance for value is that we're actually charging the instrument and making it into a complete or a negotiable instrument. And so using the acceptance for value process, and by also listing on our acceptance our pass-through account for the exemption, for the tax exemption, and then returning it back to the offerer, we have completely completed our duty and responsibility, and then it's on the head of the one who made the presentation to settle the account, because they have everything within their power now to do so. So we have been using the accepted for value technology for at least 12 or more years to settle many of the IRS incomplete instruments that they seem so fond of wanting to send to us. And again, because the public is not informed as to the true nature of that presentment, then they fall victim under admiralty to a summary judgment. So the acceptance for value process is actually based upon the fact that the United States government is operating a Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Now, Winston,
yeah.
Regarding to accepted for value, I hear many times over and over that people have taken their instruments, accepted them for value, and sent them back, but oftentimes with no results.
Well, as they suppose. Now, the first time that I used acceptance for value, it was in fact on an IRS situation, IRS presentments that were being sent to me, and it took two tries to get it done. And in another instance, I heard the story, even though I didn't know the gentleman, but I got it secondhand. But anyway, this individual had done an acceptance the exact same way 3 times before it was actually resolved. And so he had the interest of why that was, and so he actually called up and talked to some lady at the IRS and said, hey, you know, I did this thing 3 times in a row the exact same way. Why did it take 3 times? And the lady was frank with him and said, well, she said, we get this stuff coming in all the time. And she said, in reality, what we were doing was to see if you knew what you were doing. And so for that reason, they simply, you know, played ping pong with this situation. And then when the IRS, you know, finally became convinced that this individual knew what the heck they were doing, then they went ahead and adjusted the account as the acceptance for value had indicated. Now, you know, people, I'll have to say, you know, from my experience, that the vast majority of people who are attempting to use accepted for value technology probably have no idea what they're doing. And for that reason, actually, what I've done is I've put together, actually at this point, it's 4 separate DVDs on accepted for value technology, and we're adding to that information all the time.